Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, April the 7th, 2022. You are now at the Charter Review Board for the City of Opa-locka, and we're going to call the meeting to order. The time is now 6:07, and we're going to ask Mr. Clerk if you would roll call, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. Board Member Banks.
Here.
Board Member Edmondson.
Here.
Board Member Fenn.
Here.
Board Member Riley. Board Member Vega.
Here.
Board Chair Williams.
Here.
And Board Chair Russell.
Here. If I'm gonna ask Board Member Banks if she would give us an invocation, and then let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Father God, we thank you this day that you've allowed each of us to be here tonight. I ask you, Lord, to fill us with your spirit, to help us to make right decisions for the city and this community. And I thank you for allowing us to be here. Guide our minds today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we're grateful everybody's well and back in our places to continue to do this very important work for our city and for the citizens of the city of Opa-locka. Mr. Clerk, do you have any additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, can I get someone to move for the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting? Moved by Board Member Banks.
Second.
Second by a Vice Board Member Williams. Any corrections? Hearing none. Go ahead, sir.
Board Member Fenn.
Yes.
Board Vice Chair Williams.
Yes.
Board Member Banks.
Yes.
Board Chair Russell.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Now we're going to open up for public comments, and do we have anyone that have called in virtually?
No, we have 0 folks that have registered to participate virtually in today's
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we're going to open up the floor for public comments. Public comments is now open. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and board members, along with staff and an attorney. My name is Dottie Johnson. I reside at 13724 Northwest 22nd Place. Have a couple of suggestions. First of all, I'd like to commend this group for, at least on the agenda, having 2 spots for public input, because after you have your dialogue, and I think I heard on one of the previous meetings that it was suggested, and I'm glad to see you carrying it on. And I would like to take your attention to section 1.2. And I'm sure it's a typo because I was involved with this revision. I think if we incorporate Miami-Dade County instead of Dade County, because I know we did a lot of copying. Joe Geller was our attorney at that time, and I know we did a lot of copying. Throughout it says Dade County, but if you just insert Miami-Dade County, we'll be consistent with what's going on. And secondly, in that same paragraph, you have township. So I know what city we copy it from. I think that you probably need to get some legal advice. We're not a township. To the board, I would like to make a recommendation. And I noticed it both in 18 and 20. And I would like to see this board consider single seating areas. For example, you have 5 officials. 3 can be single seats where they already have zones for 3 people, 1 person at large, and your mayor is at large. So when you have the majority of your candidates coming from one area of the city and no one knows of that person on the other side, I think is a disadvantage. And I think we'll get more quality. You'll have the citizens more connected to the officials if you consider single seating consideration. I saw that Lynn from the Florida City gave a presentation, and she did alluded to it in her presentation at your last meeting. So if someone can follow up and you guys kind of probe into that, I'm going to say to the end of the meeting, some other individuals are supposed to come tonight, but I know that you need citizens' input in order for you to have recommendation that you will be giving to the commission for approval, which will go to the voters for the final. But I would like to see that channel and not go through any petition trying to get what we are asking for on the ballot, because this is the time now. It won't go into effect until 24, but if you can do that consideration, I would greatly appreciate it. May God bless you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you said single seating areas. Tell me,
Say, for example, let's use Miami Garden, for example. I think there are 5 seats.
yes.
And
You said 3 would be in the area and 1 would be at large along with the
yes,
mayor?
three single seat districts, 1 at large that would cover the whole city commission, and then your mayor is the whole city. So if you will, and you can, draw your boundaries. But I think what I've seen since like 16 is the majority on one section. And it's sort of a disadvantage. I mean, we had 2 situations today and people calling, I'm like, I'm not a commissioner, I'm an unofficial commissioner, just joking. But I think that'll be helpful where we headed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that Board Member Riley have joined us on the podium. Now, I think what we're going to do now is allow Mr. Anthem from the Finance Department. He has something that he would like to present to us as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Board members, good evening. My name is Bob Anathan. I'm the budget administrator for the city of Opa-locka. I think a bug just went by. I wasn't waving. I apologize for being Johnny come lately on this. I was not aware that you were so far along in terms of your deliberation. I wanted to discuss very briefly a subject I think you've already discussed, possibly has to do with section 4-7 of the charter. There is a handout. Has the handout been given to everybody? Chris? Okay, please. Just so you can follow along. I think you've seen it, but you might find it useful for reference.
Thank you.
Realize everybody was going to be here. I'll give you my copy. Very briefly, as I think you're aware at this point, whenever it's necessary to do a budget amendment, the charter requires that it be done by ordinance, which is a very cumbersome process. Just by way of example, if somebody identifies a need, it's probably going to be 8 weeks before that person can go forward and actually have a budget to make an expenditure against if that person didn't have it. And that's not including the state review after the fact. So it's a very awkward, slow process. And by inference, it's a budget control at the account level. What I've in the handout that you'll have, I previously was the budget director up at the city of Oakland Park. And I won't tell you every city does it this way, but my experience is many do, if not most. And if you look at the second page of the handout, I've highlighted the one item which directly relates to this. The way that many, if not most cities do it, the budget control is at the division level rather than at the account level. And as you can see, as it's done in Oakland Park and as many places, the city manager has the discretion within a division to move funds from one account to another to address needs which may arise at the moment. That is a much more efficient way. I mentioned a moment ago, a person under the way we operate right now, if they have to go forward with a procurement, they don't have the budget, they're probably going to have to wait 8 weeks. As done in Oakland Park, it's done instantaneously, so there's no delay. It's a much more effective way of doing business. And I would urge you to consider that. I'll also say that I've never seen this type of requirement in the charter. My experience is it's normally in the code for whatever that's worth. I don't want you to be blindsided. I will point out that this subject did come up during a commission meeting probably 6 months ago as a possible proposal. At that time, there were a couple of people from the public who did say that they felt it was very important that there be 2 hearings whenever there's budget. But I will tell you from my experience in the 2 years that I've been here, every time there's been a budget amendment, there's been essentially no input from the community. And the other thing that I will share with you is that as long as we're under state control, the state is going to continue to want us to submit everything formally rather than having the city manager having the discretion to do that. The reason that I'm discussing this tonight is I would hope the city is going to be out of state control within 2 years. And the number of times that we have a referendum or a committee to actually evaluate the charter is usually much longer, a couple of years. So even if this is a proposal that makes sense for you, the city would continue to document their budget amendments, probably by resolution rather than ordinance, just to save a couple of weeks. But we would do that as long as we're under state control. So that's essentially all I wanted to say. And I would ready to answer any questions that anybody might have in regard to the subject.
Board members, does anyone have any questions for?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we're talking about 2 different things. The movement of funds between departments and the amendment of the actual budget. Isn't it 2 different things?
No, sir, I don't think so. Right now, if you had 2 lines in a division, that would be a budget amendment. It'd have to be done by ordinance, have to do 2 hearings. That would be equally true if you wanted to move funds from one department or one division to another division. And again, the example that I've had passed out for Oakland Park, even that is done less formally than a full ordinance. So I don't think, unless I misunderstood your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our budget appropriation is line item. Am I correct?
That's correct, at
All right.
budget time, when the budget's adopted, yes, sir.
The amendment, the section in Oakland Park we're talking about is unencumbered dollars. Is that not correct?
It would be unencumbered dollars in either case because you would never want to move encumbered dollars from one line item to another. So by extension, it would always be unencumbered funds.
Okay. I'm looking at the language, transfer appropriation of appropriations and the actual amendment to the budget as two different things, but I can understand what is actually being asked. What is being asked is that any deviation to the budget from the original is an amendment. Would that be, could you agree with that?
It's terminology. Many places they just call it an adjustment, but it's 6-1, half dozen.
Yeah.
One way or another, you're moving funds from either one line to another line within a division, or even one line to another line between divisions. And it's whatever you choose to call it.
Yeah. It's a matter of language. seeing where we are, and I know this has nothing to do with charter amendment, why would you think that oversight should continue for another 2 years? Isn't that a limit? Don't they have the statute have a limit?
My understanding is not. I believe that it's going to continue until such time that the state is comfortable that we are fully up to speed in terms of organization, process, procedures, and our finances, literally our reserves and so forth are sufficient. So it does take time, as you well know. But I don't think it's going to occur within the next 6 months to a year. I think it'll be close to 2 years.
They didn't have anything to do with it. They haven't been put nothing in it whatsoever except for time, but there's been no investment in it. Correct?
Sir, on the part of the state, you
Right,
mean financial investment?
right,
No, sir.
all right.
But they've been very accommodating in working with the city.
Can we
And-
please, sir, can we please stick to the question at hand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's not get off because I think
Okay.
other board members may have questions concerning this proposal that you have here. And we want to make sure that we bring clarity so that they're understanding what you're alluding to.
Thank you.
So board members, does anyone else have any questions concerning the proposal that, first of all, Board Member Riley, were you finished?
It's okay, Madam Chair.
Okay, I just didn't want him to go off into something that's other than what we're talking about because make sure that we stay on course because we have some other things we want to discuss. So can you, any other board members, you have any questions for the finance director? Budget director?
Budget administrator. Thank you.
Budget administrator,
Thank you anyhow.
the man with the money.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
Bob, if I may call you
Please.
that, I'd like to ask you a question.
sure.
In transferring of appropriations of funds, transferring.
Yeah.
Let's say we don't have enough money in one of the budgets. That money that is transferred and held there can be used for any department at all.
Again, as it's set up now, the answer is yes in both cases.
Okay.
But to do it now, it's a very formal and time intensive
consuming.
requirement. But I mean, all you're doing is you have a budget. Let's call it the general fund budget, for example, and it's got several $1 million in it. And when you put the budget together, it was going to go against Project A in Division 1. You're always at liberty to put it against Project B in Division 2. It's just a question of the mechanics how you do it.
So it's a matter of where you want to pull it from.
Exactly. To Mr. Riley's point, we would not take money from where it was already encumbered. By definition, that's already tied up and it can't move.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? I would like to know, I don't know whether you would know Mr. Bob or the attorney, maybe even Board Member Riley. He's been around much longer than most of us have. Have this always been, has that always been the way that it's been done by ordinance?
It's my understanding, yes, but I'm a newbie here, so I mean, when you look at the documentation, I think the footnotes would indicate it's been that way forever.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, and I didn't see any footnotes
No,
on that, so I didn't see any footnotes. Maybe Madam Attorney, you can help me out?
Sure, there in section 4.7, the footnote is the resolution that was passed in 2012.
Oh, okay, yes, I
So
see. it.
the question is whether this existed prior to the, the revamp of the charter, or whether this was added in 2012 when it was revised. So that we don't know, we'd have to look into the history of it. And I'm happy to check into that if you'd like.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes, sir.
The 4-7 was created in 2012.
Okay,
This section was in another section of the charter. in the budgetary section of the charter. And the language is still the same. It was still always done by ordinance.
Okay, you told us the pros. Can you tell us some of the cons as to, you said that the last time it was discussed during a commission meeting that there were citizens that came up and were against it.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, or do you remember what their argument was as to, or their opposition?
Their opposition was that they felt in the spirit of full transparency, it should be shown twice. But I don't know that they spoke for the entire community. They certainly spoke for themselves.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we'll definitely take it into consideration, give us something to think about and to chew on, and we can further discuss it. So maybe at our next meeting, if we need you to come, by then, board members should have been able to go over it and, you know, kind of digest it. And we might have more questions at that time.
Thank you, ma'am. I greatly
Okay.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much as well. Okay. Public comments is closed. We're gonna move now to the recommendation, discussion of recommendations for charter amendments. And at our last meeting, we asked everyone if you would, for your homework assignment, to look over, think about some of the things that you would like for us to discuss far as making changes to the charter. I know the attorney told us that, you know, that we have to be limited in our wording. Right, Madam Attorney? Is there a number of words we could use?
200 words, I believe.
200 words
Yes, ma'am.
per item?
Yes, for a title.
Okay, okay. So who wants to start? So we could dive right in here. And we're gonna also, the one that came from former Commissioner Johnson, we could go and do our homework on that, and then our next meeting, we could bring back our concerns or what do we think about that? But for tonight, I would like for us to go over the ones that we have discussed, that you all have went home and did your homework and brought back. Who's first?
Well,
Just a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. When they research what the former Commissioner Dottie Johnson was saying, they need to Google single member districts. That's what it's called. And that's where they'll find out how single member districts work.
Okay, everyone heard that? Google single member districts. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any, who's gonna be first? Y'all don't want me to dive right in here, do you?
yeah, you can dive.
Can I maybe make a recommendation that we start section by section and then we can all kind of give our feedback on each section?
But
And I'm
there's,
happy to start on the first section if we want
okay,
to.
but there are some sections that we might not want
Fair
to
enough, and we can just skip over those.
skip over that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you
And-
know,
and there are some things that should be, that's not even in the charter right now.
okay, that, so see, Board Member Riley, that's why we wanted to get to those things first, because they're not in here.
Right.
So it might be something that we want to add, like what former Commissioner Johnson said. So I would like for us to dive into those things so that, you know, when we go home, we have something to think about. Because
Well-
if we go through the charter, we went through, Vice Chair, we went through the charter. And it's my understanding that everybody kind of made notes of what they think would be important and what they wanted to go through. So I didn't want us to kind of do that exercise again. in lieu of time, because I think our next meeting, we said that we were gonna have a town hall meeting where we're bringing the citizens up. So we want to have something that at least what we're looking at to give to them as a document. Okay? So.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
single member districting has been discussed in Opa-locka since 1985. And it's hard, I don't know why people have never gotten it, but it is a way of actual representation of districts in which is represented,
Mhm.
whereas the district people comes together on behalf of the districts and the city at once. That's what that do. It is not that you only represent your district, is that the district get a chance to represent, to elect who they want to represent them, rather than a person has to win citywide in order to represent a certain area. But with the understanding that it has to come together in order as a group on the commission and representative of the entire city. It's representative, cost effective, and it gives an area an opportunity to hold the people that they elect in their area accountable. That's basically what I would like to say on that matter. One other matter that has been tossed around, and I will debate it with anyone, is that the question that I would like to propose is that shall the civil service portion of the charter be returned? That's the question.
So I'd love to get some research on what that language said previously. And I'd even love to hear from you tonight. Like, what was the purpose of it? Why do you recommend we add that back in?
Okay. The President Roosevelt created civil service. Civil service is to give employees of a government standing, not just to be a political appointee. You have political appointments and you have the civil service employees, which are your regular hires, okay? They're there regardless how the administrative change or who changed and all. This adds continuity to government. It gives a goal for employees to work. But the civil service also presents rights. If there's a grievance, there's a due process of law under the Constitution that gives an employee an opportunity to air their grievance and have something done about it rather than just going to court. Right now, we have, maybe the attorney can tell us how many employee-related court cases we have and what it costs the city and what the league is doing about it. Madam, through the chair, Madam Chair, can the attorney have any idea of how many we may or may not have?
Well, I don't know right off the top of my head. I know in recent times.
But you're so brilliant.
I am, thank you. But in recent times, you know, the ones that we do have have been very public, and they've all been related to terminations of people who are not, you know, kind of who are the top management people, you know, like the city manager, for instance, people who wouldn't normally be going through the civil service board. You all did have one, and you may speak from the standpoint of your experience. I know you were the chair of the civil service board for many, many years. And so maybe you can share your experiences, because I don't know that anything that I could share would be necessarily helpful for you all. We do have league insurance coverage, and it covers, the city pays a certain amount. That amount has actually gone down over the last couple of years. So that may not be the best gauge or validator of what the point you're trying to make, because the employee type of lawsuits are not, really there anymore. It's been the more high profile people.
Madam Chair, if I would, I would ask board members to look up Angela Griffith versus the city of Opa-locka, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals out of Atlanta. And they really talks about Opa-locka. From that, part of the civil service was able to do was they do investigations.
So they had subpoena powers?
Right. They have subpoena powers. They do investigations. One of the things that helped the city with it is that the sexual harassment complaints come to the civil service board. And that is from anyone. That includes the elected officials, the top administrators, anyone that's in the employment of the city is subject to that. And I think what the court held in Atlanta was that there was such an atmosphere among the elected officials as well as the appointed officials for sexual harassment in the city that they called out the names of the case. If you research it, you'll see it.
Madam Chair, I have one more question.
Yes.
Board Member Riley, why was the board disbanded?
A lack of understanding, a lack of misunderstanding.
Well, I think I've heard this debated over the years about the Civil Service Board. And so when Board Member Riley mentioned it at the beginning of this board, I asked, is there anything in place for the employees now, since the Civil Service Board is no longer a part of the charter? Because I remember during that time, a lot of employees were going to the Civil Service Board, and the outcome seemingly, I don't know for sure, I don't have records in front of me, but seemingly it always favored the employee. So the city was always left kind of to hold the bag. The city was like, they were always, I don't know how many of them actually went to court, but when I inquired about bringing back the Civil Service Board or having it as part of the charter, I was told that there is something in place for the employees now that they can take their grievances to, and that they are well represented. And I don't know whether it's through the League of Cities.
You're asking me?
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm not really sure what that is. I do know that the city, by ordinance, I think what Mayor Riley is advocating for is to put it back in the charter so that it's permanent and so forth. But I think the city does have a Civil Service Board. I don't know if it has all of the people appointed to it yet, but I know they were working on that. Joanna would know a little bit better, or Chris. I do also know that there are certain type of things that the city does have a process for, like whistleblower complaints. The city has its own internal process where it has a 3-person panel. If there is a whistleblower complaint and it's heard and the manager's decision is looked at again, and it can be overturned even. So there are certain things that will allow for a review process, but and there is even a civil service board, it's just not, it's just done by ordinance as opposed to by the charter. So I think it still may operate similarly. I don't know if it has a subpoena power, which seemed to be, I think, a big deal with why, one of the reasons why, from what I understand, it was abolished before because there was a thought that that was overreaching maybe. But you may want to have some staff who were here at the time. I know there's some people who are still here who may be able to come in and talk about that board and how it was constituted and how it ran and so forth. There should be some people here still at the city who may have knowledge. I'm not the best person, but the clerk may even have some knowledge.
Yes.
So.
What-
Madam Chair,
I'm-
the ordinance was passed in 2018,
Yes,
reestablishing the Civil Service Board. The difference being is that the membership that was passed in that ordinance was not the right thing to do. The membership in the old, in the ordinance was that the commission would appoint 2 people, that the city manager recommends an appointment and the commission appoints it. And the employees elect 2 members to that board. And Madam Chairman, it wasn't so much that the outcome was in anyone's favor. The outcome was based on the evidence presented to the board.
mhm,
If the city didn't make its case, then the outcome shows it. If the employee made their case, the outcome shows it. If the city violated the rules, the outcome showed it. If the employee was not guilty of what they were accused of, the outcome shows it.
mhm.
It's an impartial thing that was being done. And the outcome was limited. There was limited cases because there was things that was being done internally, didn't have a lot of people before it. The city have a union as well, but there's no representation from that union.
But if, and I'm just for conversation, but if there is something in place already, there's a board in place, the commission, whatever the standards is, they have put something in place that covers the civil service board. So I don't know, and it's something for us definitely to think about, do our homework on. And then when we have the public the public workshop, the public can come and talk about that as well. When they were on the civil service board, did they have to fill out I know for a lot of boards that I'm on with the city, I have to do a yearly financial. To be on that board, did they have to do yearly financials?
Every board, every
Okay,
board,
okay.
okay, that's a state requirement.
But what,
The,
how would they, I just want to ask you a question, Board Member Riley, and I know Ms. Banks was an employee here for many years. I don't know whether she ever served on the Civil Service Board, but how was those people that were part of the Civil Service Board, were they appointed by the commission?
Okay, I thought I had broke it down. 2 members are appointed by the commission.
Oh, okay, yeah, you did say that.
1 member is recommended by the city manager
Mhm,
and appointed by the commission.
mhm.
And 2 members are run for office or elected by the employees.
Okay,
That's how it was.
okay,
Madam Chair,
sir.
when you have a constitutional right,
Mhm,
the standing is different than you have a right under the law. The charter is the city's constitution.
mhm.
It gives you a greater standing when it's a part of the charter than it is when it's just an ordinance. That's the difference.
Okay. All right. Yes, yes, ma'am, Ms. Banks.
Madam Chair, I think that I would like to say with John Riley, whatever has been put in place with our HR department, I would like to see a copy of it. I would like to see what has been put in place
Mhm.
for the employees of the city of Opa-locka.
Okay.
So
Okay,
just,
Madam
you know,
Chair.
I mean, with the civil service, I'm not aware that we have had any meetings on civil service at all. So since this has been brought up and you state that our HR department does have something, I would like to see that. I think that if we all saw it, then we would have a better idea of it. And that would plainly state whether our employees really have some grounds to stand on. Because if you have a weak HR department, then your understaffed needs somebody. They need help sometimes in certain areas and sometimes you have a level of employees, you have a level A, B, C, and sometimes we do have F employees that need to be done away with. But I think if we're talking about the charter, everything should be transparent. There should be some validation in this charter as to what would take place. If there was any civil service, if there's a procedure for that, because I looked through the charter, I didn't see anything on at all. I would like to ask the city attorney, secondly, if the AFNI union contract for the understaffed has been completed and or everything has been signed off.
Okay, so the manager is going to bring those. I don't want to get into issues that are being negotiated, but I think everything is very close to being completed. And I think the commission will be considering those things very soon. But that was a good point that you brought up, because some of the issues with grievances and so forth are laid out in those union contracts, both of them, both for the police and for the for ASME. So, you know, that's a very good point that you bring up. But I also want to let you know that, you know, like I said before, and I want to give you the exact place you can look in the code. It is a civil service board set forth in the City of Opa-locka's Code of Ordinances, and it starts with about section 2-532. It's entitled Civil Service Board Qualifications, and 2-533 is Civil Service Board in general. It has some general information. 2-534 has the divisions of the Civil Service Board, and it talks about the membership. And 2-535, Human Resources Directed to Preparation and Maintain Records of Service. So there are different things in here that specifically relate in your Code of Ordinances. So it's just like, you know, like the Code of Ordinances is still the law of the city. Right. So it is something that, unless it's abolished or unless there's some reason to get rid of it, it is the law of the city. So just like a charter would be your law, the charter, the difference is obviously the charter is, you know, you have to get rid of any provisions in it with a vote of a referendum vote of the citizens of the city. But I want you to recognize that the Code of Ordinances is strong too. That means it's the city's law. So it's not that you don't have a board. Now, whether people have been appointed to it or they've got enough people, that kind of thing, that's something as citizens, you all can certainly push your commissioners or, you know, whomever. But in terms of the having something, you do have something right now in place that has very specific things in it. And I think, again, well, I know that this was hotly, you know, discussed when the charter change was made, and the prevailing thought at that time was that the best place for this would be in your Code of Ordinances. And I think maybe if you allow that or see how that's working, if in fact, you know, that's what you're advocating for, then maybe at some later date, if it's not working and it needs to go in the charter for some reason, or it needs to be tweaked, you still have that opportunity. Whereas if it's in the charter, you don't have the opportunity unless you're, you know, doing a referendum vote, which makes it much more difficult. So, you know, if this is something you're advocating for, you can advocate for the process just to move so that you can see how the process works and even make changes, recommend changes. That will be very easy to make, you know, with just 2 readings.
Without
having to have voters vote on it, because, you know, you have more flexibility if it's in your Code of Ordinances as it is right now.
Well, what I would like for us to do, Ms. Banks, did you get your question
Yes,
answered?
one more thing, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Checks and balances on this. Let me ask you a question to the city attorney. in checks and balances with our HR department, that's another step that would assist our HR department in lawsuits. If the board was actually in effect, it is in effect according to our guidelines. However, that board is inactive at this time because there hasn't been any appointees and the system hasn't been set in place yet to actually get it going. So if an employee of our staff has a problem and our HR department is weak, and I'm trying to say the right,
Yes.
terms about it. But let's say we have a weak HR department, then that employee wouldn't have anything to go by except pulling this information and then stepping forward from there, probably getting an attorney to take it from there. So that's another way. I'm only suggesting that the information come to us so that we can see it, or we can pull it. You've already given it to us. Look at it to determine and see what it actually says, because I looked for it in here also myself.
Yeah.
I have the old.
You won't find it
and
in the
it's not
charter.
there. I
No,
know.
Well,
it's not in the
Yeah,
charter.
so I
Excuse
mean, I'm saying for employees, the only other alternative is the AFN union. And that's where they're going to do their homework and they're gonna push.
Well, I can only tell
So,
you all
do
that.
you know how many cases we have with understaffed?
How many
Staff?
cases, what? I'm
How many
sorry.
cases we have right now, lawsuits we have right now that are not on an executive level? Do you have any
Excuse-
idea?
I don't know.
Before you,
Okay, thank
excuse
you.
me,
I'm done.
no,
I'm
Ms.
done.
Banks, I just want to say before the attorney answered that question, I think she said before, I don't think that maybe this is the right arena to discuss that. So maybe Ms. Banks, maybe you could, she could answer that privately, but I don't think that's, I don't think us reviewing the charter and ask that question, because that's the same thing that Board Member Riley just asked a few minutes ago. And I think that's kind of putting the attorney might be, putting her, putting her in a
And I
place where she
appreciate.
don't need to be right now.
I
And
appreciate that.
apologize for that, Madam
Thank-
Attorney, I really do, but I'm.
Thank
trying
you,
to make a
Madam
point.
Chair. But
And
I do want to let you know, anybody can file a lawsuit, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the fact that there is a lawsuit that's existing doesn't mean it is with merit. It doesn't mean it is valid. It doesn't mean it has, it doesn't mean really anything. So many people file lawsuits for strategic reasons. Think of, Donald Trump, right? But people do that all of the time. So that should not be, I don't believe, the basis upon which you all make your decision.
Right.
It really should be if you think it's strongly enough, and that's you all's decision whether you think it should be in your charter. And so if you believe that, then that's your recommendation, right? But all I'm trying to do is just let you know there are, it is an ordinance. If you think it needs to be somewhere else, then you can look at it and make it that determination.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Mr. Chris, can you please, for the next, so that we'll have it before the next meeting and we can look at it, if you would give us that code 2.5, that we can look at it, and then also determine, we as a board, we can determine whether it needs to be in the charter. I was wondering, does it have more teeth? You answered that question for me. It doesn't have no more teeth if it's in the charter versus it's in the code. It's still there for the employees to take advantage of. It's just that the board have not been active. But there is something, and I don't know whether the board have to be active in order for an employee to get their do right. I don't know. But once he give us that, we can dive right into it. Board Member Riley, we can look at it. And if it's something that the board thinks that needs to be in the charter, then we'll move in that direction. I think I see you. You want
Okay.
to say
Madam
something? Go
Chair, I
ahead.
just wanted for the records and for those that are watching that the board is there, but there are 3 vacancies. So it's very
True.
important. There's 2 now. It's
So,
reflective on the website that there's
Madam Chair,
3.
just for everybody's information. So there were 3 vacancies until last month. The commission did make an additional appointment, and that has brought us to 2 vacancies. And per ordinance, basically each member of the commission has the ability to appoint 1 resident. It doesn't have to be an employee, one resident to the board. And there are 2 members of the commission that have not made that appointment as of today.
Okay, with the ones that are appointed, is there a quorum now?
So there are 5 members on the board. There are currently 3 appointees, so there is a quorum.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
So the employees right now do have representation according to that code of ordinance.
well, the board hasn't met.
Yeah,
so-
but there's something in place. That's what I was told when I asked for information. I was informed that there is something in place. It's just not in the charter, but the same, well, they said the same. I don't know because I didn't see it, Board Member Riley, but they said it was the same according to what was in the charter previously. So in 2012, I think Commissioner Johnson, you was on the when the charter was changed. So I see you moving your hand back there. I see you moving your hand. So this is something that's very passionate for Board Member Riley. And so we want to make sure that we have all the information that's needed so that we will make a good informed decision and not just throw it away and say, no, it's not good to be in the charter, whatever. Okay, everyone agrees? So, Mr. Chris, clerk's office is gonna get us that information so we can, and then look at other
Yes, ma'am.
cities, look at other city ordinances and see what they have. And then, you know, it would help us compare. Okay? All right, everybody's good? Shake your head, yes, Mr. Ryan.
Oh, I'm always good. The county's point is basically like the EEOC, and they have what is called the Commission on Human Rights. And they handle those, it's basically the commission of basically discrimination.
Yeah.
And it handles municipalities and companies throughout Miami-Dade County, all except those that are employed by Miami-Dade County.
Okay, so we gonna dive in that too.
Madam
Make sure we
Chairman,
get-
if we could ask that the rules, the civil service rules be included in the package so you could look at the 2 different things.
Okay, all right. Mr. Clerk, have that in the minutes. Okay, Civil Service Board, Mr. Finance Administrator is talking about changing budget changes. Former Commissioner Dottie Johnson talking about seating areas is what she called it, but it's single member districting. And okay, what else?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Section 7, I think they're for so long with the compensation of the commission.
Yes, sir. Everybody was very passionate about that one too.
Well, I want to address it.
Okay,
1956, I was 12 years old,
mm-hmm,
and we doing the civil rights movement. We went to get they had us gas boys doing the Montgomery bus boycott. We would have to go and get gas for the cars, and it was 10 cents a gallon. You could get 5 loaves of bread, family size, for $1. So $50 in 1956 was okay because you could rent a house for $20 a month in 1956. But this is 2022.
okay,
And to equate that, I just feel we're looking at what was 1956 and 2022 to say, not only with the city of Opa-locka, I look at the same thing with the county commission. To get $6,000 a year, I find it insulted. And you're not gonna get the quality of people to elective office that you should get. Now, I know we talk about public service and et cetera. That's fine. We all do public service. We're doing public service here tonight. But we attend a meeting once a month, whereas people are on calls. There were a time in 1956. The charter indicated that there would be 2 meetings per month. There was no special meetings. All of this came later. None of that. It was 2 meetings a month, and it was $50 per meeting. That's the way it was done. That is different than what it should be now, and I think it should be addressed. I think the question that I would like to propose is that the salaries of the commissioners be done by budget. And that the budget will not exceed 18,000 a year. And shall the city,
Per commissioner, sir?
right,
Okay.
and shall the city support as its commissioners' employees insurance for those elected officials.
Did everyone hear Board Member Riley talking about the compensation for commissioner? His proposal is $18,000 a year per commissioner and insurance benefits. That's what insurance are you referring to?
Health insurance.
Health insurance. Okay. Life
I'm not
insurance?
proposing a set number, Madam Chairman. I am saying that it shall be done by budget, but it shall not exceed,
Okay, not to exceed.
not to exceed 18,000 a year.
Okay. Okay. Board member?
You answered the question when you were speaking. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, conversation about compensation for employees. I meant for the commission. Nobody?
Madam Chairman, would you say to, can we say to those of our advisors that they even though they don't have a vote, but they can participate in
Yeah.
everything else?
Well, Commissioner Edmondson said she's here to advise. She was not giving advice. She was not telling us what to do. She was not telling us what to do. Well, this was a subject that was very passionate when we talked about it. And I agree with you. I don't know whether I agree so much with the dollar amount, but I believe that the responsibility of the commission, if we don't think they are deserving of anything, then we should not vote for them. But I do not think that we should ask them to work for free. Because being a commissioner, although you're a servant, it's a job. I know that I volunteer on boards and it takes a lot of time. Sometimes the commission, they have meetings in the morning. That means they have to take off from their job. I mean, do you want to use your vacation time or your sick time or whatever time you have on your job to take care of the city's work? And then I think in Opa-locka, we try anyway, the demand that we put on our commission, mayor and commission, I think is a lot. We expect them, if we call them and they don't answer, we come to that podium and tell them, I called you and you did not answer. So I don't think we should expect so much and then give so little. I agree with Board Member Riley that it should be a part of the budget. I know that that was a concern of Board Member Banks, that if it's not in the budget, where you're gonna get it from. So that's why it should, just like every department is a part of the budget, whether we buy uniforms, whether we buy cars, whatever we buy, whatever we do in the city is a part of the budget. And I think that we know better. So I think that we should do better. So I advocate for a dollar amount plus health insurance. Now, I think at one time commissioners had life insurance.
Yes.
They did. So I don't know about that. I don't know enough about, how that would work. But I think that they should be afforded the opportunity to use the city's health insurance and to be compensated. And I would go as far as saying that they should have transportation. They should not have to wear out their personal vehicles doing city work, doing city business. The city should afford them with transportation. I believe that's me.
Madam Chair.
I see,
Madam
before
Chair.
you, Board Member Banks, I think,
Go ahead.
I think
yield.
that's
and
that.
I know
I
you're
yield.
gonna give it to us
I
tonight, so
yield.
we're ready. We're ready.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, I am an advocate for their compensation to match their work. The dollar amount that was proposed, I think is a little high. I propose it to a little lesser, but
Excuse me, he said not to exceed.
exceed, I know. But
Okay.
when we put that type of language in there, we give opportunity for each one to get that amount.
Okay,
And how will we be able to compensate them? We're just getting out of deficit. We're just starting to thrive. So that will lay a problem with me as a resident so that we don't get back and we're spending so much money. I also heard your last line and I cringed because I don't think that it's necessary for our representatives to have a vehicle. We are not such a huge city where they need a vehicle to do that. Now, maybe if it's one vehicle that's there when needed, then that would be something that's considerable. But for each one of them to have their own vehicle, how do we know that every time they're using that vehicle, it is for city purposes? And then we do have to gas that vehicle. We do have to maintain that vehicle. So then all of the expenses of each one having a vehicle will then still reside on the city. So I'm not an advocate for the vehicle. I'm not an advocate for cell phones. I'm an advocate for increasing their pay with an option to elect health insurance or life insurance.
so you're saying that you don't agree with them having a cell phone? The
Not a
city
city
paid for
issued cell phone.
a city paid cell phone.
Not really, no.
Then how would you separate your city work from your personal business on your cell phone?
That's a good point. So taking in that in consideration, I may have to retract that because of
Okay.
course, as a
Madam
commissioner,
Chair,
you are going to need that separate phone.
just as
So
a
I would
point
have
of,
to retract that.
just as a point of clarification, all the members of the commission currently have a city cell phone already.
Okay,
It's already provided to them.
okay.
Now, will we have to add, sorry, Madam Chair, will we have to add that to the charter because that language wasn't in there?
I think, I don't know whether that language is not, it doesn't specifically say cell phone, I don't think. But the dollar amount, I think it's what.
The dollar
Board
amount is in
Member,
there.
Riley said, but how do I work? How do I come to, if I'm given a job to do, and this is just something for us to think about, and I'm still talking on your point, because we're gonna give Ms. Banks ample time. How do I come to work and do your job if I can't have a computer, a cell phone, and all those things? Why would I do a job and being a public servant and then got to use my personal money and take away from my family to do it? That's, if I want to do it, it's okay. But as I just think that we expect them to be public service. We expect them to be there when we call, answer our phone calls, come to commission meetings, whether it's 5 times for a special meeting a month, all of these
Mhm.
things that we expect them to do. But then, you know, the money, when it comes to the money, I don't understand, why do we think that it should be such a small, like it's like a task to compensate. And then even if you give them the $18,000 a year, if you add up what a commissioner does in the run of a week or a month, you know, that's really not, especially with gas being $5, because all of the work that commissioners do is not in the city limits.
Madam Chairman.
So you're gonna answer, you're gonna speak up, because we want to make sure Ms. Banks gonna have
Yeah, I want to have
time.
that. Madam Chairman, we have state legislators. Our state legislators go to Tallahassee for 2 months.
Mhm.
For 2 months out of a year. We pay them $20,000 a year. You get what you pay for. Okay? You get a cheap car, a used car, you have a problem with it. You get what you pay for. But we are being petty on one side and we lose overall on the inside, on the other side, because the way that the structure is for politics in America is designed for rich people to serve. And what do rich people know about the average person in the city?
That's a good analysis.
Because they can afford to do this because they're rich. It was designed for the average person, for a poor person, not to be able to serve. That's the reason it's the way they are. That's the reason they have these low amounts and et cetera. So poor people will not get up there because they can't afford to serve. And we look at it and go along with that. But being an elected official, I just want to share with you one thing. In 1984, I became the mayor of Opa-locka in April, because we had an election during that time. Three weeks after I left, after I was elected, I went to a meeting of the National Conference of Black Mayors. Out of these 300 and some odd mayors, black mayors, I was elected to the board of directors. I've only been in office 3 weeks. That August, I was elected to the World Conference of Mayors. That July, we have found the Black Caucus for the state of Florida. I was the second president.
Mhm.
All of this brought influence back to the city of Opa-locka. It wasn't costing Opa-locka money, it was costing me money, okay? But
They were the benefits.
the city of Opa-locka was the benefit. All right, and eventually, but I'm just looking, telling you this type of things that the officials go. Same thing on the county level. You got a county organization. If you don't network, you don't get resources back to your community.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Okay,
So
so,
can I?
So I'm just, I'm gonna let Ms. Banks.
okay, you're
All
very
good point.
passionate.
Can I make a point in reference to Board Member Finn's response?
Uh-huh.
Just in regards to the transportation in the car,
Mhm.
we can also simply consider car stipends, right? So, I mean, you brought up a good point about not wanting to manage a fleet and all of these other things. Well, why don't we just offer the commissioners a car stipend?
I am in favor of that. That was my next point after she had said something, that it could just be a stipend rather than a car or vehicle themselves.
And, okay. All right, here we go. All yours, Ms. Banks, come on.
So why not we just give them a blank check and say, here, here, this is what you can do. Come on, y'all. I'm a realist. And I'm an ex-employee who worked here handling the money for the city. Our commissioners had all these things from the very beginning. They had it. They had cars. They had all of that. Don't get me wrong. I said it in the past. I'm not against the commissioners having some money. Adjustment is due. But I'm all in favor of it. And I don't want it to be misinterpreted. To me, they need to prove their worth. They come in as commissioners. So if I want to run for a commissioner, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at it and say, look, I'm going to be coming into this. If I get in, I'm not going to be making any money. Do you want to take that job or not? The same as the same as all of us that are sitting here on this board. We're not being paid 1 penny to do this. We're spending time. For all we know, minutes, we may go into 9 o'clock. It's time consuming. They did have insurance. They had cards. They had allowances. They had all these things. And look where it got us. Look where the city is right now. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to say it again. When we come out of where we are financially, and if you know anything about money, you got to get out of arrears before you can make profit. You got to. We can go ahead and we can make all the recommendations we want to make. We can send it to them and they can do it. It still has to go before the people in this community, okay?
Yes.
And the community has to say nay or yes, okay? So whatever we want to do, I'm going to make my recommendation. I just say we need to wait until we have some money, until the city comes out of where we are. Because it behooves us to do that so that we can, and then we can come in, or we can even go ahead and project it and put it on and say, yes, let's give them, and come up with an amount. The people are going to, those of us that are all residents, we already know it's been on the board. It went before the people before. I was a voter myself. Some of you were also. It was what? Voted down. Because the community felt they weren't doing anything to warrant getting a raise at that time. And the city was in financial emergency. So how do you say to the community, we're going to go ahead and we're going to increase their salary? But the community is we're in arrears right now. Look at where we are, y'all. We're never going to get anywhere until we learn how to balance our money. We have to learn to balance it. If we're business people, you have to learn to balance your money. I did not say they're not entitled to something. I do agree that they should get some money, and I do agree that they should get insurance. I want that to go on record. I do. They're entitled to that. They should have that. I think the people will vote on how much they want, and I think if we agree to give them anything, I think it should be on a parameter, which means it should be stated through finance. That's the way probably all you all want to have it. Then they can go ahead and they can put A, B, C, maybe say from 12,000 to 14,000. I'm talking about putting it on the ballot once the commission approves it. And then the people can decide how much money they want to give them. Me and Ms. Banks, I can't make that decision. Because if I was to review them right now, all 5 of them, 4 commission and 1 mayor, the same as we do our regular employees, then their salaries will be based on their review. And some of them may not get a good review. So I wanted to go on record. I'm all for giving them some money because of their time and the effort they put in. And some of them do put in a great deal of time and effort. And I think they should be given insurance, health insurance for them. Life insurance should be their own thing, but health insurance they should be getting. But all this car and all this crap, we all know where it got us. We all knew that the taxes right now are sky high. I'm talking about realistic things right now. I'm not talking about play things. I'm done. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. You're very passionate, and we all are very passionate.
Very passionate.
But what I do when I sit on this board, especially for the charter review, I try to make sure I don't I don't look at the commission that we have now as my standard for what I'm doing. I look at the overall picture of where we are in 2022 as a people. And I don't base this is me now. I'm not basing what I'm doing up here on how the commission today is performing. I don't base it.
Madam Chair, 1 minute, with all due respect now, with all due respect to you. When you
Mhm.
budget your money, do you do it the same way?
What do you mean? Do I
When
do
you
it?
budget your money at home, do you do it the same way?
But when I budget my money at
I
home,
just asked a straight question. Do you do it the same way?
what do you mean?
I'm saying, when you budget that money and you know you need $50 to pay something that's gonna come up next month, do you project how much money you got and everything?
Yes, of course. Yes, because if you don't do, you have to do projections to know, because I know next week I'm gonna get $20. I have to stay within that projection.
That's what I just
But-
said. We have to know that we've come out of debt. So
Mhm.
you're saying right now, you're saying, even though our finance staff has not changed. Our finance director isn't here, he left, but he plainly stated, he gave us an analogy of how long he thinks it's gonna take. So
But-
right now you wanna, and we can project this, and I know it can be projected. We can table it and go ahead and do our recommendation to the commissioners and let them
Mhm.
know. And they can go ahead and put it on the ballot if they wanna put it on the ballot. But
Mhm.
if there's no money, the states, we're still not gonna be able to do it. So I
Madam
know you
Chair-
want to project it just in case in the
But-
future.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I said, I agree, if you want to, we're gonna do it anyway. I'm a realist, y'all.
Mhm.
We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna still send this to the commission. We gotta come up with something and we gotta send it to them so
Mhm.
that they can make determination on what they want to do with it and then get it out to the public.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm looking at the public, because you know what? I gotta go to the polls and I gotta vote for it.
Yes, most
Yes or
definitely.
no?
All of us up here that are
Every one of us that are
residents.
residents here, we
Yes.
gotta vote for it.
So, but I want to bring our attention to one of the documents that we have here that talks about financial emergency. And the answer was that, the answer to the question, we asked the question, how do we come out of financial emergency? And the answer to the question is that it is not based on monetary. It's based on our ability to be current with our last 2 years of fiscal audits, ensuring that we do not exceed 90 days in paying our vendors and that our audits are audited by an outside auditing firm that is bonded. That's the reason why we're still in financial emergency, because I think Mr. Riley kind of alluded to it a little bit. The state, since the city went in financial emergency, the state have not given us any money to bring us out. Opa-locka have budgeted, stayed within the budget, paid their bills on time. You know, when you pay your bills on time, it costs you less. You know, they've paid their bills on time. They have did a lot of the audits. I think they're maybe 1 or 2 audits behind, but those are the reasons why we were in financial emergency. Not that we didn't have enough money to pay our bills. It's just that the money was not being spent according to the budgeted items that we had budgeted. That's why.
Say that again, Madam Manager, Madam Chair, say it again, say it
The
again,
man-
say it again and put it on record.
Before y'all get it wrong, please.
Okay.
Don't forget now,
Okay.
this is the second
It's
time
when
we've
it's-
gone into financial emergency, okay?
Yes, I know.
2 times.
Yes, but this is the answer right here to the question when
Truly
we
it
asked the
is. Truly it
question.
is, but that money has to be handled in a professional way.
Yes, most
Okay.
definitely. I
All right.
agree with you.
So
I agree
Madam
with
Chair,
you.
can I?
Go ahead, jump
Okay,
right in here.
So a couple things. So one, I would say, when you do a budget, right? So if we were to decide on this and it was voted on, we are simply saying to the administration, this is a priority. And so they are responsible for taking that and then creating a budget based on what we've said is a priority. Every single year, they create a budget and there are priorities that are set. They move money around from one place to a different place. If we vote on this, or it's not just us, obviously it has to go to the voters, but if this is set as a priority, that's what it is. And so it will go in the budget. So I know we keep saying balancing the budget. Please know that it's going to go to the administration, to the manager, and he will be responsible for taking the priorities that the people of the city have now set, right, based on the number that we set, and it will be budgeted into the, or be balanced into the budget. But I also want to add, I know we talked about the amount, there's the recommendation, it shall not exceed 18,000. When the League of Cities, I believe, presented to us last time we met, they made a recommendation in terms of what a formula could look like. I would highly encourage us to look at some formula. It doesn't have to be that formula, but I think it's important. One of the things that I think of, and you brought up a really good point, Board Member Riley, we can't be 20, 30 years later and still using the exact same amount that we were using before. And so we want to make sure that we're setting some formula that bakes this in on a regular basis so that we don't have to have this conversation 20, 30 years from now, right? So there should be some formula, if I'm not mistaken, there's one that's set by the state of Florida, and let's rely on that. And I think it's also important for us because we're also relying on something that other municipalities are using, as opposed to us just setting a number, that's just pulling a number, out of thin air. So those are my comments as it relates. I will say I am in support of this. I think it is incredibly important. I think so many of you all have made some really good comments, and we have got to value the folks who are representing us. They put a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort into this, and we have to show them that we appreciate them and we respect their time, right? Pay is equal to time, and we need to show them that we respect that.
Okay, one last thing that, what this kind of reminds me of is, you remember when I think it was Representative Meek that got it passed for the classroom size to be, I think it was like 30 kids or something per classroom size. And they kept saying there was no money to do it. There was no money to do it. But once it became law, they found the money to do it. And what it did, it helped our children. So we might not always look at it in the same light, but like Ms. Banks says, she do agree once we come out of financial emergency that something should be done. So we're all in agreement that something should be done. We're just like in the middle of the road as to what that something is and what it's gonna look like. So we want to look at this with a open mind, and let's move out. For me, move your personal, Janie Russell, move your personal feelings out of the way and look at it from a professional point of view. And I think that I'm going to make a good decision because I'm not going to make it personal. Mr. Riley, and then we're going to move on.
Madam Chairman, as a point of information, 2016, we was told we would be bankrupt, that we couldn't make payroll.
Yeah,
we couldn't pay
I remember
we
that.
couldn't pay our bills. All of that, that's what was done in 2016. Okay, the city never missed the payroll. We did pay our bills, and we got no outside help. Okay, so I'm saying that now. The audits, that's a whole different things, but we have to understand budgets. This is not like the federal government. Cities, counties, and the state of Florida, the law requires we have a balanced budget. We cannot not have a balanced budget, okay? We can lose a lot not having a balanced budget, all right? So I just wanted to, that point of information is there. And even though the restructuring, if you notice, in 2017, they came back again saying that we were not going to meet payroll. That we couldn't pay our vendors. We wasn't. But once we organized and got it lined up.
Yes.
And in the meantime, departments suffered. Departments within the city suffered. And I can speak for that. Departments suffered.
Everything suffered.
Everybody pays a price when you have debt.
Employees.
When you have debt, you have a price to pay for it. All of us. So you got to be smart with your money.
Yes, most definitely. We all agree. I have one that we haven't touched on yet. That first, let me look at the time here. 7:30. Okay, I'm gonna throw out one and then we're gonna have public. Oh, you have one as well? Okay. The time is now 7:31. So we got a little bit more.
You get yours, and then if we've got time for mine, that's fine.
No,
We'll see.
mine.
Yours might take a while. Okay, so I would like to recommend in section 1.3, we look at the form of government. So I want to start off with, I am not in support of a strong mayor government, but I have seen in many other charters where there is this mayor, commission, manager government, right? But I think what's important is outlining the responsibilities of the mayor, right? So I think that our mayor is doing more than what is here, right? They are the ceremonial head. They present a State of the City address annually. So when you look at some of the other charters, they literally just outline what that mayor is responsible for. And so I'd like for us to explore that. I'm happy to bring some, some research that I've done. I can work with the clerk. We can find a few examples. If you all want to go and do some research, I definitely know the city of Miami Gardens says this, where again, it is not, it is just outlining what they are responsible for. And I think we have to realize that the commission is not just equal. They're not all doing the exact same thing. When a representative for somewhere else calls, oftentimes they're calling to have our mayor go and represent the city of Opa-locka. And that is more work on that person. And so I think we should probably just look at, the responsibilities that we are putting on the mayor.
Okay, that was a lot. That's something that you could bring back to us. And I'll throw mine out there too, so we could chew on this a little bit.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
as a point of information, from 1926 to 1956, Opa-locka did have strong form of mayor.
And so, but for the record, I'm not advocating for the strong mayor
Correct, but,
form. I am not 100%. I'm just saying, let's outline the duties of the mayor, recognizing that the mayor does more than the commission. And right now we're treating them as equal. And the reality is that the mayor absolutely does more than the rest of the commission.
But for the record, I just want to let you know, I don't have a problem with the strong mayor form.
Oh,
because-
okay, all right, okay.
I don't know where that would go. I don't know how we would, I don't know how to word this, Madam Attorney, but I'm gonna just say it and, we could dive right in there. I think that the chief of police position should not be the sole responsibility of the manager. I think Miami Gardens does it in a different way. That the commission itself, along with the manager, chooses the chief of police. I think that the chief of police is such an important position in a community that it should not be left just to one person to make that decision. Say, come on, give us some advice. That's why you're here. Say what you started to say.
Well, we'll have to.
When you have,
She want, go ahead.
when you have the commission involved, it becomes political. And you want the chief to be a professional and not someone who can win 3 votes. And that's why a lot of municipalities, it is up to the professional manager to promote and hire the chief. And that's why you see that just about everywhere. Becomes very political.
Okay. Okay, I was, in my thought pattern was in Opa-locka, although the manager does it, it still seems to be a kind of political thing. But I just think that something else needs to be put into choosing a chief. I think that is such a high level position that, I think you just need to do everything you can. Not saying that they don't get it right, but I just think that more needs to be put in it. And I didn't think that it should be just the mayor and the manager. I was thinking about more the whole commission, but I understand what you're saying, and it probably would make it very political, but I just think something else needs to go into choosing the chief in the city. So That's me. Anyone else?
Madam Chairman, there could be an authorized select committee to take the politics out of it. And that could be part of the Civil Service Board or something else. But you want to keep politics out of it.
Uh-huh,
Okay.
yes. Mhm.
One of the things that has happened in some municipalities where the manager had the final say in hiring, but he needed consent, advising consent of the council or the commission for
Okay.
termination.
Oh, okay.
You can think about it that way. you know.
Okay, well, we'll
But
look
two
at it.
things. Those two different things, if you don't mind. Select committee
Mhm. I
for
got
the
that.
hiring and consent for termination.
Consent from the commission.
Right.
Okay. All right, I think we've dove into a lot tonight. So we're going to, if anyone else doesn't have anything else to add to this, I'm quite sure we got a lot of homework to do. But we're gonna move now to our public comments again. Public comments is now open. I know I see she got a paper full of notes right there.
What a robust conversation, which was very interesting. My first item is the commission compensation, which Mayor Riley, I beg to differ. In 2002, remember, we tried to get a higher salary and that was turned down, and we finally got it to $550, which is now. We really tried, and the citizens said no the first time. So the formula, whatever you may use, I think it need to be progressive, just like you would have a contract for your employees, that in so many years it would increase 5% or whatever, but that you can work out. That was just a suggestion. I'm on another page when it come down to the police department. I'm looking progressively that the police department perhaps need to be elected by the people. Public safety, I mean, something to think about. Be elected by the people, and that way the politics can, well, you know, I'm not only talking about the city of Opa-locka, I'm just saying it's a different vineyard. I was very active, very, very active, and I'm compassionate when it comes down to the charter because I am a certified human resource manager, certified and trained. And when we took the civil service out, I, along with my colleagues, made sure that there was other provisions that would allow the employees. So instead of putting into the charter, which has to be voted by the voters, we felt as a group, as a dream team, that it would be better fit in the code, which will allow the commission the opportunity and the flexibility never to make sure that they did not have representation. And I worked in the United States Postal Service for 35 years in HR. The one with the budget, resolution versus ordinance, and I think your previous, your former attorney can tell you. I was on the commission from 2002 to 2014, and my position with the resolution versus ordinance, that the resolution, the input from the citizens, but that public hearing is so critical to make sure they got it. I don't think we as a city have done a good job promoting community engagement. So that was our theory of making sure when it came down to the money, the budget, that the taxpayer constantly had input and an opportunity to share their view. When it came down to the carpool, I think Nelson was around. My car had the less because I was told something different. I was told I can only use my car for city business. And I never used it but for city business, so I had the lowest mileage. But guess what? I found out later that people was going already to Homestead to do their job in their vehicle, and I started using mine. Now, whether it's right or wrong, I did it. But I think it's a great idea to do carpooling, making sure there are designated a certain amount of cars, vehicles that the elected officials and others can use, but it's domiciled in the city and it's maintained jurisdiction of the city manager, probably through Public Works. Now, Ms. Russell, you and I have been together since '99, and I am a stickler for whatever you all get, us out here need to have. So when the staff said that it was unexpected, you got some looking, but always be expecting. But I was very happy to see that you have a copy through the clerk's office, a copy of the charter, and your handouts there. But if that can make sure that anything that you're getting, that is always available to the general public. And I just want to say, and I don't give a lot of hats off, and this is my first meeting, but hats off. I really appreciate the dialogue. Parliamentarian probably wasn't adhered to it, which I'm a stickler there. But thank you very much. And I think you're gonna go somewhere with it. Just remove yourself from it and know that you're speaking for people, multiple people that may not have a voice and they're dependent on you. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Former Vice Mayor Johnson, I apologize for, because I thought when Mr. Barr was passing it out, I thought he had enough that they would put out for the audience as well. Because I know I've heard you say it many, many, many times before that whatever we get, the public should have it too. So in the future, as much as we can control it, we'll make sure that that's being done. So thank you for the public input as well.
Public input closed.
Oh, excuse me. Public input is now closed.
I move to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, Ms. There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Can we discuss it?
Sure.
I just want to ask Mr. Clerk, do we have a meeting set for the public workshop that we're supposed to have?
Not as of yet. We would need some feedback from the board as to precisely how you all wanted to handle that. There was a question that was discussed at the last meeting as to whether you wanted to do that during one of your regularly scheduled meetings or you wanted to schedule a separate workshop. Another possibility would be to consider scheduling a workshop prior to one of the city commission meetings where the public already comes in large numbers and could potentially come a little earlier to actually attend the workshop and provide you all feedback. So we would need some additional input from the board in order to determine that. And currently we have you all scheduled for an additional meeting this month, 2 weeks from tonight. And you all can let us know how many more meetings you want us to put on the calendar.
Okay, what the deadline again for us to have the information to your office so that they can get on the ballot? That's in May, right?
Correct, for the August primary election ballot, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, everyone, we need to decide whether or not we're going to have, I think the suggestion was given last time that we have it, the public meeting workshop during one of these meetings, so we don't have to add another night. So I think everybody was kind of in agreement with that, to have the public workshop during one of our regularly scheduled meetings, so we don't have to add another meeting. Okay, so if we don't get it, our next meeting is May. We have one more in April. Maybe
Yeah.
we could do it for our first meeting in May.
Okay,
That sounds good, everyone. Maybe our first meeting in May, we can have the public workshop. Okay, can we look at those dates,
so
please?
the date for that, just so you're aware, would be Thursday, May the 5th.
Okay. Okay. There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Me. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you very much.